Cash flow management. It's a very tricky part of running a business. If you're not used to it, it can cause you trouble. So today we're going to go through an example to demystify balancing cash flow on a small farm coming up on Modern Grower. Welcome, everyone. I'm Diego, Diego. I'm a podcaster, a business owner, and for the past 10 years, I've talked to countless growers about what's made their small farm successful. I'm using that experience to help you make your journey into farm entrepreneurship more successful. And one thing you're going to need to be successful as a farm entrepreneur is to be able to manage cash flow. Cash flow is one of those topics that's critically important for a business, but I don't think people fully understand it. I think people get profits, sales minus expenses is profits, but they don't understand cash flow. Cash flow is when money comes into a business and when money comes out. And the timing is critically important. If you can't match up your incoming cash flow with your outgoing cash flow requirements, you're going to find yourself short on money, and some of your suppliers are going to be saying, "Where's my money? Pay your bills. What's going on?" So I'm going to run through an example on how you can do this, because small scale farming, the nature of it, and the sales models that go along with it lend themselves to potential problems when it comes to managing cash flow. For example, if you're a CSA farm, you most likely take the majority of your payments for your CSA around this time of year, January, February, March. And you're going to deliver on that CSA for the next 10, 20, maybe 40 weeks. You're going to deliver without taking cash back in. So everyone's prepaying up front. This is going to result in a flood of cash into your bank account. In this example, we're going to say, imagine you got $90,000 in CSA payments in the month of February. A lot of people are going to see that money flood in and they're going to think, "Oh my God, I'm rich. 90 grand in the bank. Isn't it amazing?" And your first temptation is, what can I buy? There's all this stuff I need for the farm or in life, and I'm excited to spend all that money. After all, 90 grand, that's a nice chunk of change. But pause. This is the only 90 grand you're going to get from that CSA for the full year. So it's a lump sum payment up in front, and this is why lottery winners go broke. They can't manage the money. You win the lottery, and before you know it, you have golden toilets and golden doorknobs and nothing left in the bank because you spent it all. A lot of those lottery winners would be better off just being doled out little bits of money over time, because the reality is people can't help themselves. We aren't good, most of us, at restricting our spending. When we have a lot in the bank, we think that's a bunch we can spend. Not everybody's disciplined, and you're going to have to be disciplined. So most of this income for this hypothetical farm is going to come in February. You will get additional income in this example when farmers markets start up come summer. And then other months won't bring in any income. So you can see that on this chart. 90 grand comes in February, nothing in March, nothing in April, and then May through October, we take in $5,000 sales a month, resulting in $120,000 in revenue or sales for the calendar year. Now, if you're not careful, as I said, you can spend this. You can think you're rich. But we have to think through this cash flow example yearly, not just monthly or seasonally or week by week. Because incoming cash flow is only a part of the financial picture, and we also need to account for monthly expenses. So what you see here now, this chart is showing your sales and your expenses for the full year. And then that third column where it says cash shortage or surplus, if it's a positive number, is how much cash you would be short at that time of year. Think about this. If you have bills coming due as a farm in January, but you don't have income coming in until February, the only way to pay those bills is either to work out some sort of deal with the supplier where you can pay them later on in February. You can try and delay those expenses until February, and that's part of cash flow planning is buying things or pushing back buys until cash flow starts. You could get a line of credit to cover certain months. I know some farms and many businesses do that. Or you have to use income from the previous year to cover those expenses in January. So if this is current and this is January 2025, we have $4,000 in farm expenses. Maybe that's labor. I have to use earnings from 2024 to pay for that because I haven't had my CSA payments come in. They're going to come in next month. So bam, CSA payments come in, and now you have that one chunk of cash to support you throughout the year. But if we just look at this chart on a month-by-month basis, you'll see that most months we're short on cash. And this isn't accounting for that $90,000 sales carrying through. Right now, we're just looking at on a month by month. We're isolating those months because we want to get the expenses down and know how that's going to work. So if we look at this, we can only pay our bills for 4 months of the year based on income coming in that month. Thank God we get that big lump sum, though, in February. So February is critical, bringing in that cash so you can use it throughout the year to pay your bills. This is where you really need to stop if you don't understand this and try and understand this concept. And you need to think about how you could map this out on your farm. If you found yourself short on cash in certain months of the year, this exercise will help identify where those shortages can potentially occur. Keep in mind it is based on estimates. We don't know for sure how much we're going to sell at a farmer's market in a given month. But if we've done it in the past, we could make reasonable estimates. Similarly, if we've done a CSA in the past, we could say we're trying to sell a CSA share for $500 and we're going to sell 180 shares. That's $90,000. Doesn't mean you're going to sell it all, but that's the goal. And you can do the same thing for expenses. It's better to estimate and get this stuff mapped out than just throw your hands up and say, I don't know what any of these numbers are, and just leave it to chance and figure it out on the fly. Because odds are you're going to run into a situation where you're going to have a whole chunk of money due and you're not going to have money in the bank to pay for it, especially in the startup phase of a farm when you have a lot of money going out, buying infrastructure, soil, compost amendments, equipment, that type of thing, seeds. And oftentimes when you're starting up a farm, you don't have sales going yet. So it's really a one-way flow of money out of the business with nothing coming in. The other thing you have to account for here is that this is just business expenses. And this is another key part that I don't think a lot of people factor in. They think, well, here's how much my business makes, here's how much my business spends. But if your business supports you, meaning your business pays your salary, which you need to pay rent and for food and utilities and all that stuff for your personal life, then you need to account for your wage in this cash flow example or exercise that you're running through. Because your apartment or your mortgage landlord doesn't care that your business hasn't taken in sales this month. Their business required them to get the mortgage from you or the rent payment from you so their business can go on. So you need to be able to pay for that. So part of this exercise, you can't just account for business expenses. You also need to account for your wage if your business and your financial life depends on you pulling a wage from your business. So that needs to go into the sheet. Now we can then sum those up and we could say how much money is coming into the business, how much money is leaving the business each month. And we could have a monthly cash shortage or a surplus. So in this example, I'm saying we're going to pay ourselves $5,000 a month. $5,000 a month means we have $60,000 a year that I need to pull out of the business for my pay, my salary, owner equity, whatever you want to call it in accounting terms. And then I have $60,000 in expenses. So this example conveniently balances out perfectly. We have sales of 120 and you have expenses, which include, and also including wages, that adds up to 120. So at the end of the year, we're net zero. But it's the lumpiness, it's the timing of this cash flow when it comes in and when it has to leave that makes it difficult for us to plan. So when that 90,000 came in February, we weren't rich. We felt rich at the time because that month we only had $4,000 in expenses and $5,000 in wage. So we had to spend pull 9 out of the business, and 90 came in. We're up 81 on the month. But in March and April, we're negative 10,000 and negative 11,000. So we need to use that 81 from February to pay that $10,000 and that $11,000 cash flow requirements. So if an expense is not accounted for and you don't have an understanding of this concept, you might get expenses that come up during the year and might not be able to pay for them. So you don't want to spend income quickly as it comes in, especially if you don't have a plan. If you don't know what your next few months of expenses look like and you have a huge bomb sales month, bomb in a good way, you don't want to burn through all that money. You need to think, all right, this month was amazing for sales. What do expenses look like the next few months? So if I sold nothing, can I at least put aside enough to cover all of those expenses? Then if there's any surplus, I can use that to either save or reinvest in the business. And I'm factoring my wage into all of this. So you can't take into account everything that's going to happen. There's going to be surprises. Vehicles are going to break. Some equipment's going to break. You're going to need something you didn't anticipate. That won't be on this sheet because, as they say, stuff happens. By at least planning, though, it gives you the opportunity to say, where do I have surplus? In what months am I cash flow positive enough that I can put some aside for a rainy day? Because inevitably the storm's going to come in and we're going to get soaked when the refrigerator dies. I hope this was clear. I hope this is valuable. I think cash flow planning is extremely under communicated in the small business world. I don't think anybody talks about it in terms of farming. It's all about how much I made and not even really how much it costs. So this is really financial planning 2.0 or accounting 2.0. Beyond revenue, beyond expenses. It's looking at when cash comes in, when cash goes out, and ensuring that you have enough cash in the bank at all times of year to satisfy your outgoing cash requirements. Watch the lump sums when they come in. Don't spend it like a crazy lottery winner. Keep some for a rainy day, plan ahead, and you'll have money each and every month to budget out that cash flow. The other great thing about this is if you start to plan this ahead, I know expenses are going to be this, and this throughout the year. If you have a slow sales year, so in this example, we were saying, what if we got $5,000 a month in farmers market sales? What if it's $4,000 a month? I'm coming up with $1,000 each month short. By knowing future expenses, it's in the future. I haven't spent it yet, but I'm anticipating having to spend it. But I see current sales. I can think ahead and start to adjust now, saying, ooh, I better, tighten the purse strings, tighten the belts up, cut stuff. I'm not going to buy this. I was going to spend money on this. That's not the plan anymore. I'm going to buy an alternative, or I'm not going to buy anything. Or I have to do all these other things to pick up extra sales if those expenses are mandatory. So this roadmap of your finances gives you a chance to adjust ahead of time and plan in advance so you can create contingency plans to either try and increase sales or cut future expenses along with current expenses so you're never caught surprised. Like, oh my God, we're down to $100 in the bank account and we have $3,000 in bills we have to pay. What the F are we going to do? I've been in these positions, and that's why I think this is so critical. This is one thing that was hard for me when I started a conference 10 years ago. I had a lot of outgoing expenses right away. So a lot of my expenses right off the bat were up front. Money went out. I needed to ensure I had income coming in to offset that. And I needed to make sure when I started my business, I had enough seed capital to cover all those outstanding expenses in the beginning. And then once those were paid off, a lot of the way the speaker agreements worked was you'd pay a certain amount up front and then a certain amount after the event. So I knew after the event, I almost had this big balloon payment coming where I had to pay speakers out after the event. So all the sales all along the way, I had to save up for that future balloon payment going to all those speakers after they fulfilled their duty and spoke at the conference. If I had spent that money, then I would have been SOL and I would have had no way to pay them. So that's one way I learned the importance of this very early on in my business career. And hopefully this example will help you manage your cash flow a little bit better in 2025 and beyond. If this wasn't clear, if there's other things you want me to go over in terms of cash flow, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.